As I listened to President Bush deliver his State of the Union message, I could not help but compare his reality with the reality back home in San Jose, Milpitas, and the Bay Area in general. He talked about the mortgage crisis. Yes, thousands of families in our area risk losing their homes. He talked about Iraq. Yes, hundreds of Californians have died in the desert in a war sold to America on false pretenses. He talked about the economy. Yes, the median income in counties like Santa Clara has steadily eroded since 2002, when inflation is factored in. He talked about education. Yes, thousands of children from San Francisco to Gilroy have been left behind after the president cut education budgets year after year. As the list went on and on, I got more and more upset. Sadly, most of these problems started under this administration's watch and under Republican-controlled Congresses. On Monday, he asked for trust in the American people. But in the past 7 years, he squandered the trust Americans placed in his hands. Bush and the Republican-controlled Congresses inherited something good in 2001, a new, vibrant economy and a nation the rest of the world looked up to. They managed to mess it all up, to be politically correct about it. 7 years ago, President Clinton left a federal budget with a $5.6 trillion surplus and a humming economy. Today we have a $3 trillion deficit, a sputtering economy, and a growing gap between the rich and the poor. Most economic gains these past 7 years were made by digging into home equities and other borrowing. Instead of investing on education or other long-term pillars of economic growth, Bush and the Republican leadership gave tax cuts to the have-mores, ignored the have-nots, and forgot the have-somes. This country's economy is built on the middle class. When you neglect middle-class America, you flush prosperity down the toilet. Read my lips. Trickle-down economics don't work. This is not a figment of my imagination. I hear it at every town hall meeting. I read it in many of the constituent letters I receive, and the anecdotes are backed up by evidence. Since 2002, the median household income in Silicon Valley rose by a mere 2.37%. At the same time, inflation rose almost 14%, savaging those meager gains. Between 1993 and 2001, middle-class incomes increased $6,000. Since President Bush took office, median household incomes have dropped $1,000. 7 years later, you just can't blame the previous administration for this backward crawl. That is why I commend Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who stood up for all Americans since the Democrats regained control of the Congress in November of 2006. Whether it is through the proposed bipartisan stimulus package Speaker Pelosi negotiated, whether it is in health care for 10 million children, which the president repeatedly vetoed, or whether it is strengthening education for all Americans, we're changing our nation's direction. This Democratic Congress passed the largest expansion of college financial aid since the GI Bill in 1944. We slashed student loan interest rates, and right now I'm working on legislation that will help overhaul No Child Left Behind legislation, which the president kept touting. He forgot to mention about his underfunding of No Child Left Behind. Through this law, he made demands on our teachers and our schools, but does not provide them with the tools to meet those demands. For example, this year schools needed $36.9 billion to meet No Child Left Behind benchmarks, but he only funded $23.7 billion. That's almost a $14 billion shortfall. Iraq, by contrast, cost us $10 billion a month. For the cost of 1 week in Iraq, we could pay a full year of college for 400,000 young Americans. Failure in education is failure in long-term economic policy. As an educator of 30 years, this is a heart-wrenching to me. When I visit schools through my district and throughout the country, I see an ossified system, while the new economy around us changes faster and faster every day. We need a new paradigm in education, and I did not hear that from the president. America's competitiveness in a global economy depends on our education system. The education of our children is a national security issue. If that's so, then why aren't we willing to go to war for our children and give them the funds they deserve? I don't want to sound personal, but ask all those families in my district who have been affected by these misguided policies. To them, the education of the children is personal. To those people who are losing their homes, this is personal. In the last 3 months of 2007, more than 2,100 homeowners in Santa Clara County received foreclosure notices. That was a 147% increase compared with the same period in 2006. This did not have to happen. In 2003, when several states such as Georgia tried to rein in predatory lending, the U.S. Treasury Department prevented regulation of a mortgage industry run amok. This administration had a chance to prevent this crisis. Instead, they actively encouraged it. They are trying to fix this through provisions in a stimulus package, which will help middle-class families in the high-cost housing areas such as Silicon Valley and New York. If this package is approved, these families will qualify for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac loans, which will help them refinance. In the city of Santa Clara, the median price for a home is above $660,000. In some other parts of our county, that number is above $1 million. Middle-class home buyers are between a rock and a hard place, especially if they can't sell or refinance their homes to avoid foreclosure. We need to protect that key part of the American dream, the house with the white picket fence every young couple imagines. But we need to be aggressive in our policy solutions. We cannot just stay the course, as the president proposes, in long-term economic policy. As everyone knows, that has been the same formula in Iraq, where he continues to ignore reality. I don't see how the president claims success there when our international reputation is in shambles and our forces are stretched thin around the world. He used hysteria to sell Americans a war that has only benefited contractors such as the companies where Rumsfeld and Cheney used to work. Bush and hard-headed Republicans traded America's stature for the proverbial bowl of lentils. The only ones eating from that bowl are the contractors. In our district alone, 10 young people between the ages of 18 and 36 have died in Iraq. More than 400 are Californians who are dead, and more than 3,000 injured have come back to our state. The president says violence levels in Iraq have dropped. I'm grateful for that, but that is thanks to the bravery and sacrifice of these men and women in uniform. I cannot commend the administration for creating the conditions for a civil war that put our soldiers in harm's way in the first place. The administration is not succeeding where it counts, pushing the Iraqi government to make political progress and making the hard-won gains of our soldiers worthwhile. I cannot commend the administration for an expensive, unnecessary war it keeps financing by saying, no new taxes, charge it to America's grandchildren. But I am not one to end on a negative note. I hope to see a change this year in the White House. I hope to see a president who can regain the goodwill of the world and inspire us. This nation needs inspiration to regain its confidence. When I was a young man, I spent 2 years in the Peace Corps, building schools in El Salvador. President John F. Kennedy's call to service inspired me. Those of us who served throughout the world had a stronger positive impact on those Salvadorians, Africans, and Asians who met us, a better impact than all the military ventures we had launched before and after. This, I hope, will be the year when America is inspired once more, when we regain our trust, when we reinvent ourselves. This, I hope, will be the year when America and our beautiful valley in California will inspire the world once more. Thank you.